Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Coyle, seconded consent agenda.
I just had one question, and that was, how many student teachers do we actually have from Upper Iowa and Buena Vista? Just curious.
Very few a year, just a few.
Okay. A couple from each then? Okay. Just was curious.
Iowa code just dictates we have that agreement in place.
Right.
So
Right, I understand
just
that.
in
I
case.
was curious how many, most of them are you and I.
Most are you and I, and Warburg.
Okay, thanks.
I've got an update to the Human Resource Report. Subsequent to the distribution of your paper and electronic copies, verbal offer of employment was accepted by Ms. Erin Slewinski. And she will be teaching science at Holmes and Pete Junior High School. And if the record needs to give it announcements, the secretary, could you tell us what the secretary, the salary will be for Ms. Slewinski?
$46,959.
Thank you.
I gotta juggle glasses, I'm sorry.
Any other comments? Okay. Those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Dr. Petit has not received any requests for public comment, nor have I. The student board member report will be given to us by Dr. Petit.
Yes, Michael Flancha is not able to be here tonight due to the All-City Orchestra concert, so he sent the report electronically. A couple different items. We had a great turnout at the Tiger Trot 5K held on April 16th. All money raised will be split between Mrs. Smith and her family and local families in need during the holidays, which is tremendous. They have upcoming staff appreciation breakfast and blood drive for Student Senate. They also talked about 96 students receiving a Division I rating across 3 music disciplines at the Solo Ensemble Festival on April 16th, which is tremendous. A lot of activities going on across the high school, which is always good, with men's and women's track, men's tennis, and a lot of different other activities right now. So they are doing a lot of work at the high school as they wrap up. I think seniors have about,
18 days.
18 days left.
Not that anybody's counting.
Yes, exactly. Nobody would be counting at this time of year.
Michael actually had a Michael did a bulletin board in front of our office, and every day they changed the numbers. So.
Tremendous. So obviously with graduation coming up soon and the end of the year soon, so we're very excited by that, and we know that the next meeting will be Michael's last, and we'll do a little bit of recognition at that meeting as well. So
Very successful prom this past weekend.
yes, he sent this to me before prom, but everything went well at prom.
Okay. We now are privileged to have an information report on our character leadership education.
And we'll start out with the elementary. At the elementary, besides what we have embedded with our core curriculum, we have a couple different programs going on. One is the Character Counts program and Leader in Me. And tonight we have Heidi Kuzi and Michelle Peters from North Cedar. They're the first elementary in the district to begin with Leader in Me. And was that 6 years ago, Jen? 6 years ago. And we actually have Jen Hartman too. I don't want to leave Jen out. So I'll turn it over to Heidi and Michelle. Thanks.
So thank you for allowing us to be here. Michelle and I are just going to do a little overview of what Leader in Me looks like at North Cedar. So our first slide, let's see if I can do this right. Okay, great. I'm on board here. Leader groups. This is a huge part of how we get many students involved. Grades 3rd through 6th can sign up for a leader group, and it runs each semester. They rotate, so if they sign up for something that's not what they thought it would be, they have an opportunity to switch. But one leader group is public speakers at the bottom right. That's where our students meet a few times a week. We learn a skit over about 6-week time, and then we perform it for the whole school, and then there's follow-up questions in their classrooms. So that's pretty fun because we have about 25 kiddos that are in the assemblies. Another big part of the leader groups are service leaders. This group, about 25 6th graders, organized a project for the Humane Society. And so within that group, there were subgroups. So a small group did the advertising, and then another group decided how they were going to present it in the classroom. So just different things like that.
And then, so those are leader groups that are building wide, and then we have within our classrooms students always have jobs. I always tell the kids at the beginning of the year, like, we're family all year, and so this classroom's like our house, your desk is like your room, and then we're all going to have jobs to do around the classroom, so they do that. And they love that. We also have student spotlights where we highlight, a lot of classrooms do this, it's not based on like your behavior, and somebody gets to be highlighted, but others don't. Everybody's highlighted throughout the year at some point. I usually do it around their birthday because they love that. And then every classroom at the beginning of the year develops a mission statement. And we say those every day and go through those and use those as our guide. Go every day?
Leadership notebooks, habit 2, begin with the end in mind, have a plan, set some goals. Every student K through 6 has a leadership or data notebook, and within that, they keep track of their spelling scores. We have kindergarten,
Kindergarten, 4th and 6th.
spelling, math, reading, just they're tracking their progress.
Victories, things they're excited about.
And goals for the week, for the month, and then this is used during student-led conferences twice a year.
Okay, so we just titled this, It's a Culture, because I started at North Cedar 5 years ago. I came from another district, and I just know when I walked in, you see the posters, and there's great events, and it's common language and clear expectations, but a lot of schools will have that, and this struck me as different. Like, it wasn't just that. It was the way, and I'm going to start stealing your thunder on this one, but it was the way the staff and the kids interacted and the family feel that came along with it. So it has to be a culture that's created there. It can't just be putting some posters up and this is how we do business, but it has to be how we live. Sorry.
No,
That's not what we practice.
So when we talk about leader and me, we have to look at ourselves. And if there's not buy-in by everyone, then it's not going to be effective and it's not going to be lived the way we want it to be lived. So we talk about how our weather, our behavior, our attitude, and how we look at things affects our students. And so we just put it here, we have to believe in what we are teaching young leaders. The way we treat each other and handle our weather has the greatest impact on how our students learn to handle themselves and their weather. So just living it, and it's a lot of self-reflection on the staff. Are we using the habits? Are we modeling that for them?
So that brings us to keep the main thing. We started to seek lighthouse status. This is just kind of our journey. And we noticed that we just kind of lost, we didn't totally lose our way, but you kind of start to because you start checking boxes for a business. And so we decided that what was best for North Cedar, just for our school, was to get back to the heart of it and focus on our kids and on our family and the community that we wanted to have there. So,
and what it means for North Cedar is we want our kiddos when they leave North Cedar to be humble, kind, and hardworking. We want things to be authentic and true to themselves, and just use the habits to help them with coping skills and struggles through the ups and downs of life, and just the pain that they may encounter throughout their home environments. And we just want them to experience joy on the other side.
So then it's kind of funny, we were trying to find a quote. We're like, we gotta have a quote. We always have quotes. And we have one every week in my room. And so we were looking for one, and a student who's now a 6th grader just happened to that week bring this quote in. She found it in a book somewhere, and she brought it to Mrs. Guzzi. And I just loved that there was this student who had done this, because when we had her in 4th grade, it wasn't always that natural for her to find this kind of thing and to have it touch home like it did.
She wouldn't have made this.
She would not have. No.
And so we had this little MS walk there. She's a service leader this semester and was so passionate about having a team for the MS walk. So she recruited her mom to help her, and she came to me and she brought it to a vote with the service leaders and said, hey, can we do this? And then within that, again, we went back to the subgroups. Okay, let's do a gum fundraiser. So some of the kiddos needed to ask for permission with Mrs. Hartman. Then some people had to advertise it. Some kiddos talked about what MS even means. And so it was just right there was a great example for us, because you've been there 5 years, I've been there 6, just to see, hey, this is where we were in 4th grade, and this is where she is in 6th. And so hopefully she'll carry those habits with her. Any questions? Maybe you don't need. Maybe you don't do questions.
What did the kids do for the Humane Society?
They, we recruited them, asked them what they needed, and they gave us a whole list on their website. There's blankets and food, and it's just a whole supply list. And so we put that out. One student made posters, and then we went around to advertise it. And then we did the Pennies for Paws. We did that for a whole week too, the penny drive. So we gave them money donations and also the supplies, with the food and the laundry, detergent, everything.
Thank you.
It's the snacks.
How do you vote for
The next slide.
I'll just introduce these two.
Thanks.
We also have Angela Whitmer and from Holmes Junior High, and Becky Lynch from Pete Junior High, who have been coordinating the character and leadership activities at both the two junior highs.
So Holmes and Pete have done things a little bit different, but starting next year, and we'll talk about that, starting next year we are both moving in the same direction, and we're really excited about that, to be able to do that together and bring our schools together in that way. So the purpose of the character and leadership program that we've been using, when I came to Holmes, we were pretty much using character counts all on its own and doing a lot of pencil paper dilemmas and things. Times have changed, our kids are digital, and so in the last couple of years I worked really hard to try to make this more digital focused. So our kids get different videos, current events, Padlet. I mean, we've done some different cool things. We're more interactive with each other. So that has led to a real change in what we're doing. This year, Mr. Meyer, our associate principal, he had been at Appleton Parkersburg before, where they had purchased this curriculum, and I'll hand it around. It's kind of a load, but you guys are probably going to look at it. But they had used this program by Dr. Joseph Hodel, the character development and leadership, and we decided to go ahead and purchase this. And it has really, along with character counts, driven what we've decided to do this year. We really liked it because we feel it is definitely more of a secondary focus and starts looking at not only high school but beyond employability, college, and overcoming some of those obstacles that they might run into. So we've been really happy with that. It also comes with another book. We decided to go with the Role Models edition. Back in the day, this was filled with some different people like Tiger Woods, and they're gone. So it's changed a little. So it has some great role models in here. So one week we'll introduce the concept. The next week we focus on a person or a role model that really exemplifies that. And then the next week we look at ways to really apply that to our building and beyond. So here is the role models version of that as well. Our goal is really to give our students an opportunity to apply this to themselves and look for ways within our building and outside of our building for them to really apply these different leadership roles for themselves. So we present this every Monday during 4th hour because at the secondary level, Mondays are our late start, but our 4th hour, because of lunches, is a normal time. So it's a perfect opportunity for them to have a 10 to 15 minute lesson and some opportunity for them to talk about that together as well. So like I said, this year we really started using the Joseph Hodel character and leadership. So it's actually an 18-week, it's a semester course. So I broke that up over 2 years. So the 2015-2016 themes you guys can see there. And so right now we're working on composure because spring is hard. So we're all reading it right now, all of us right now. But you're really talking about how to really compose yourself and handle when things are getting frustrating and overwhelming and you're starting to feel some anger. So they've done a really good job with that. And then May will wrap it all up with really looking at character, and we'll tie everything back in together. And then next year with Pete, we're going to be working on those themes.
So we're very excited to get the other 9 characteristics in next year. And so part of, and you'll see this kind of later on, the collaborative process has been Angie and I and our schools working together to create this for the entire student body. So as you can hear from Angie, the home students have been able to get this as a whole population, and we'll kind of go into how Pete has received it, but we're very excited about what it'll look like next year. So those are the themes for next year.
Absolutely. And I wanted to show you just a quick example. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but one of the cool things we did in February, our theme was respect. So we focused on self-respect, respect for others, and respect and pride. And one of the big things we focused on was pride in our school. Junior high is a hard time, and sometimes they lose that focus on how proud they should be of where they are and being a Holmes Tiger or a Pete Tiger. So we went ahead and did a lesson there. Oh, if you want to know who's in charge. Okay, there's so many computers. If you could, February 29th, 2016, if you would click on that. And then you can open that up, and hopefully it works. And then you can click on Present. So this is an example of what one of our lessons looks like. So this would be a second. It would be the second one in that. So we first opened up with a video of Coach Ed Thomas talking about how pride and where you're from. We need to be proud. This was the first game after the tornado. We don't necessarily have to watch that. We can go to the next slide. So then the kids get an opportunity to talk about it. And you can hit that again. And we talk about respect and pride and tying it together, that it goes beyond just athletics. It can go into every part of your life, whether it be your family's property, your own property, doing your part in school to make school a better place. And this is something we're really, really proud of. In junior high, the cafeteria can be fun. It can be interesting. And one of the things we've really noticed is what a disaster it can be after 3 lunches. And we wanted to do something so that it wasn't up just to our janitorial staff or our lunch people to be cleaning that up. Our kids need to start taking some pride in their surroundings. So our student council kicked it off for us, and we started a pride challenge. And I don't know if the sound is on, but if you want to click on that cute little face of my little student there, I hope the sound's on. And then you can play that. Oh, there's no sound.
Hang on a minute.
Ooh, we're not giving up yet. We're not giving up. We're not giving up. It's a Beatles song.
Where's the volume?
I can't see.
There's a lot happening.
Can't see.
There's a lot happening.
See, you can't, don't challenge an old man in the middle of a
I'm sorry. Imagine how great this is. It's really good.
That's all the way up.
Right,
How about
go to your
your-
other
It's the
bar.
other.
On the right
Way on the
side
bottom.
now.
You're like, I can feel it. It's so good. Yes.
Oh, over here.
No, there's a bigger issue. So what the student council is doing is challenging. They kicked off first with 7th grade volleyball because I'm one of the coaches, so it was easy for us to kind of start that. So they challenged 7th grade volleyball to take a week and clean the room and clean our lunchroom. Yes, there's so many. Do you see them? I know. And then every week since then, and this started late fall, every week since then, we have had a different group cleaning our lunchroom as a pride challenge. And I have to tell you, and Mr. Welter can attest to this, our kids have done a fantastic job. And I will say, our male-dominated groups have done a much better job at it. Like our girls are like, ew, but our boys are like, yeah, that's not what we expected. So it's been awesome, and we're so proud of them, and it's really made a good difference in our culture. We had a sub-custodian in, and she stopped me, and she said, are all these kids in trouble? And I said, no, they're doing it as part of our pride challenge. And she was just blown away. She said, I used to dread coming here, and now and this is awesome. Because it was a mess. And so they've really done a great job. And this is just a quote. This is to end one of them. Then we always do a quote, and every character counts as well. So you can X out of that. I'm sorry. I should have had like a big thing. Run it. And then you can go back to the other presentation.
That is the other presentation.
No, there's another one. You opened that one up into something. Yep, there we go.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
All right, okay, so to kind of give you guys a background of where Pete has been, where it's kind of led to this collaborative piece looking for next year, our 7th grade English teachers actually use the same curriculum, the character development and leadership binder that was passed around. And so how do they utilize that is the role models book sits on the desk every day, and then they will kind of cover a characteristic throughout the school year. And so you can kind of see a small piece down there, but basically one of the components, there's also a video series that goes with that will show like a movie clip that kind of exemplifies that characteristic. And so sometimes they'll utilize those, but a lot of times it's a lot of reflection, processing, but also journaling with it. So you can kind of see Amelia Earhart, she represents perseverance. And so she's just kind of an example, that small piece of how they're reflecting. And so it's neat that they covered that same curriculum, but again, it's just kind of targeted to our 7th grade group. And that's why we kind of looked at it and wanting to make that change. 7th grade FCS, as part of their 12-week exploratory, also does a unit with character counts, and will make character count cookies. And so they have the colors match the pillars, and they'll really, again, reflect and focus on that. So our 7th graders get a lot of this, but again, that's what we're kind of looking for every student. And then we've done a lot with, for Boost, if you guys have heard our kind of week-long program that we help with our 7th grade transition. In the past, we have done the 7 habits, which are great, and so it's kind of nice to kind of carry that over, bridge that language into the junior high. But again, as we were finding some of this new curriculum, and you'll see one of them, Growth Mindset, if you've read Mindsets by Carol Dweck, that's an amazing concept that is so rich for our secondary kids. And so we have used more for Boost, talking and teaching the growth mindset. The idea that, our brain is like a muscle, and if we continue to work it, work hard, persevere, make mistakes, learn from them, that we do improve. And so being able to teach kids that their traits aren't fixed, that they can work on them and grow in that. And so that is a lot how we've kind of shown that character and leadership. Our leadership groups, it's kind of nice because Holmes and Pete, we really do have a lot of the similar leadership groups. So we both do student council, and with that, you will see multiple fundraising events throughout the year. For Pete, we try to make a point to read at each of our elementary feeder schools, and so we're reading in kindergarten, first grade classrooms. You can see an example there. Holmes goes to the nursing home and volunteers. Pete just got done with an April awareness. So again, kind of that Monday lesson that you see, but we covered some areas where we felt like the student body needed to have more awareness of stress, mental health, etc. And then also we work really hard with our student council to help with that 6th to 7th grade orientation. And then Angie and I both do our girls leadership groups, which we love. And so we go to the elementaries and reach out. I know Holmes is going to North Cedar here soon. We've been to Cedar Heights this year. We also have our collaboration with Susan, CF Women's Leadership Group. And so it's neat that they come down every fall and speak to our 8th and 9th grade girls. And then we take our leadership girls and we present to our 7th grade girls. And so it's a really cool trickle-down effect of how we're giving the platform for our students to lead their peers, but also be role models to the students below them. And they run with it. We just kind of supervise, and it's student-led. So to show leadership and character in that was, amazing. And then Peer Helpers is a class that both of our schools offer that do a lot of service learning and outreach. So again, a lot of character and leadership development within those student groups. Moving forward,
next year.
Yeah, okay, so
or this summer.
Yeah, or in this summer, yes, because we need to work through, we need more collaborative time. Okay, so Leslie PLC has provided great time.
Yes.
Like we said, we need more because we are working towards building next year's curriculum and being able to do that together. And Angie's done a great job of having 2 years ready, so we're going to continue to tweak those, but again, start fresh next year and have both Pete and Holmes doing that on Mondays so that our entire student body is receiving that curriculum. And again, it's kind of that culture shift. Teachers are doing this too.
They were spot on with that too, getting your teachers to really buy in and believe and the common language, and not just something that you do on Monday, but something we're really believing in. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
And last but certainly not least, Susan Langen will talk a little bit about some of the things going on at high school.
All right, well, thank you for this opportunity. It's really interesting to hear the elementary and the junior high speak, because obviously we reap the benefits of what the programs that they do at the high school, and even the leader in me, some of the students like that are at high school now have only had it for a couple years, but some of that terminology is coming through in some of our groups, so we look forward to having that trend continue. We don't do any specific character development curriculum or anything at the high school, but we do a lot of different things. And the first slide I have is just some of our leadership groups. We have similar ones to the high school Student Senate. Each class has a leadership group. We have the Women's Leadership Group, the MVP, the Mentors in Violence Prevention, and then some other Model UN, Robotics, DECA, Friends Program, and then of course all the athletic, music, and drama activities that we have throughout the school where students are expected to show character and in their leadership and the things that they do. So then some of the activities
this community service things that like Student Senate does is truly amazing. Michael talked about the 5K and the needs that they meet, and even one of them that isn't up there, but Travis Vaughn, the collection they do for Travis Vaughn, his 2 nieces were in our school these last couple of years, and so Student Senate just jumps right on board, and they collect different things for that, and it's just really a neat thing to see. The food drive, and if anybody knows anything, the food drive takes 6 weeks. I mean, it is tons of time and energy from Student Senate and all 3 of the leadership groups, and it's a competition between East High, West High, Cedar Falls, and Cedar Falls usually wins. To do the Northeast Iowa food drive, but it's amazing the things that they do and the things that they to get their goals. But there's other things too, little things that they do. The senior citizen prom, they do some other fun things. The mentoring activities, we do the girls leadership. We've done some mentoring. The Friends program where students go to the elementary, high school, or elementary and junior high and have done some mentoring. That's really been helpful for us to work together with that. And then the mentors in violence prevention. I know Jenny and Jim got to come, and that's kind of my baby right now. So we had a great day today. We had the 9th graders come, and that group is now responsible for like being welcoming those 9th graders. And so they line up right at the door as the students came from the buses.
That was awesome.
That was so cool. And so then the other half of them were in the auditorium, and of course today they just led tours and different things like that. But it was just a really neat thing, and obviously you all know that when those students show their leadership and their character, then that builds them up just as much as it does with the students. And Dan's daughter's one of the leaders today, and it's just fun seeing them in a different a different role than sometimes just being, regular students. So we have lots of different things that are going on too, not just these things. These were just some that we wanted to highlight. And then, so all students have the opportunities, so even if they aren't in the leadership groups and in some of those specific things, they still, the food drive and different drives and different things are open to all students, so they do have an opportunity to participate. And then obviously students in leadership groups and different, they have more training opportunities. But when Jason and I were talking about this tonight after school, and I said, but we would love to have more time to do training and things like that. But Power Hour, we thought, it'd be a great time to meet with the MVP and the leadership. So we're all fighting for those kids to kind of try to make sure that we get things done. And those are busy kids, but we try to spread that out too to make sure that we're reaching out for all the different types of students. So again, it's mostly an infusion of the character development, through the activities to get to the students. And then I just said at the very end, the high school kids, and they have a lot to lose or gain, as junior high too, but as they're getting ready for college and their careers, we try to incorporate that too. And media, you're all the things that you do, you have a lot to gain or to lose as you are getting ready to step out of the high school too. So that's kind of more, what we do at the high school. And like I said, it's not a specific program, it's infused more throughout the different activities. So, yeah, any questions or anything?
So you said something that really resonated. You said that you at the high school, you reaped the benefits to what was happening in the junior high. Mm-hmm. Just the importance of what you do, because the universities reap the benefits of everything you do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so thank you very much for
I would tell
your role in this relay race.
You are, you and I is getting some good ones, and I got it.
Yes,
Jen
it's
Hartman's
noticeable.
son is one of our MVP leaders who also went to the MVP luncheon, and just outstanding young man and prompt. You guys, you probably don't regret you asked me to come up here because I want to tell you, this year's prom was probably one of the best that I've been to, and I've gone to quite a few proms, and there's 600 kids there, which was bigger than it had ever been, and the kids just had fun, and they were dancing, and they, not just Jacob, but there's a group of senior boys right now who they're mostly cross country and track teams, but they get out there, they don't care if they're goofy or whatever, and you all know this too, that when you have those positive role models, then hopefully they're going to, the other kids are going to follow along instead of the opposite, which we've had the opposite too, where we've had negative role models and they follow along. But this year's prom was it was fun. I mean, I never looked at my watch once until about 11:30. I said, isn't it time to go home?
I'll tell you, I watched my watch a lot. It got to be 3 a.m. I was ready to go home.
And I was lying home in bed by that time. But just in parting too, we have great students. I mean, we also, we have students, with lots of issues, and not all of our students are perfect. And we're still working on that Jello wrestling thing. But we do, the support from the parents and the different things. I think, the culture is different even since I started at the high school, where it's not like if a student makes a mistake, they're done, it's over. It's like teaching them, if you're in this activity and you have those responsibilities and things, but you still have a chance to screw up, because you're going to screw up, and you're going to be able to hopefully come back after that screw up and still be a good citizen and show good character. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice job.
Okay, now moving to
Doug, can I ask a quick question?
Wait, questions. Excuse me. Sorry. Go.
For the junior high, real quick, so you guys are going to go student body wide, so will it be the same topic, but
Yes.
it'll be like age appropriate, so everybody will be doing courage, but it'll be...
Right. So we'll be, right now, all of my students get the same lesson every, so all 7, 8, 9 get the same lesson. So the next year, P and Holmes will have the same, and the lessons will be the same as well.
But different.
3 rotation.
Okay, got
So
it.
after next year, we'll have a 3-year rotation done.
Okay.
Yes, no.
But luckily the lessons are appropriate for 7, 8, and 9, which is what I think is.
Yeah.
And then, Dan, because you came to when the Leader Valley group brought in the gentleman from...
Wherever he was from.
Covey. So, and you heard the high school presentation. I mean, there was good stuff, but it was a little vague.
It's
So
really
what was...
It's really premature right now.
So what was your takeaway? What do you think we can... I mean, they're good messages.
I think they're good messages. Again, I think Susan mentioned it. It's tough to find time to be able to do that, and I would say most schools, at least at the high school level, they infuse those things as a part of their activity programs and other things that they do. Some of them do it as an elective class that they allow people to do that and those kinds of things. So, I think there's a lot of great concepts in that, but I don't know. It hasn't been proven yet. In fact, they still said it's kind of in a pilot form.
Right.
They don't even have the curriculum written for that yet.
Right. And they didn't. It's not a roadmap like it is for elementary. I mean, it's very
Really
student driven and
There's not the data books or...
Right.
Yeah.
Like the curriculum I use at AP, it's a class. They do that as an elective class. So we're using it differently at this point, but we definitely see where it could definitely be infused into a class.
Vision we have potentially is taking our peer helpers class and incorporating the leader and me type lessons.
Moving into that.
To me, that would be ideal, but I like the way we're doing it now because it reaches every kid. Everyone knows it reaches a lot of kids.
Well, and it's great to have. The MVP group was interesting because you did have the obvious leaders, but not everybody. I mean, everybody. When we were talking to the students on the way back, I mean, some of them were very upfront with saying, "Yeah, I mean, I made some mistakes," but so it's a very good mix. It's a diverse mix of kids, and showing that everybody can be a leader. So that.
And it's great to see even junior high kids who at P maybe hadn't established or those leadership skills weren't kind of at that surface yet. And so to see them step up in that role at the high school, it was like, you're leading now. It's finally kind of caught up to them.
And leaders in different ways, which is exciting.
Yes.
Some service learning, some of them might take active leadership roles, but everybody's a leader, but it might showcase or be brought out in different ways, which is exciting.
If you get a chance to watch our video, that the sound wasn't on, maybe the Heatley can share that with you, but our student council president this year is also our turnaround achievement winner this year, because he was a student who had made some mistakes as a 7th and 8th grader, had done a lot of growing. We were very nervous when he ran for student council president, and he has been dynamic. And he has really took all the things we've worked on this year and really applied them and led us in such a great way, and we're so excited for that as well. So.
The other thing that hasn't been mentioned and I'm so proud of with our program is that our teachers are leading this discussion with our kids. And it really develops that caring relationship between student and teacher. And our teachers quite often use examples from their lives to help touch that base. And to me, that's a secret in education, the kids buy into that relationship. So
that's why I think too, we started to look to kind of give ourselves a booster shot this spring. and really it goes back to that same thing. It's not a cubby thing, or it's not a character count thing, or this gentleman's name. You know, it's about, we pulled from Tim McGraw's new song, you know, it's all about being humble and kind, and then everything else should fall under that. You know, the 7 habits all fall under those 2 words. And so, you know, it's just the way, like you said, it's the culture. No matter what you're using, how do you develop that culture for your building that makes it, you know, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll learn guitar and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
So we're ready to proceed to the joint facility discussion. Doug, would you like me to sit and drive while you talk? Would that help?
There. Let me give you a little background first before we kind of go through this. For a number of years, on the facility plan, the 10-year facility plan that was developed, what that mean now, 8 or 9 years ago with Pepple Fund, we've known that the tennis courts at the Robinson Dresser Sports Complex were going to be in some pretty significant need of repairs. I believe it was 3 years ago. Don't hold me to that. It might be maybe 4 years ago. The district spent a considerable amount of money on basically what I would call a big Band-Aid or a big patch job, taking care of some cracks that had developed and some other things that had happened at the tennis court. And so, thanks to Janelle, we have some photographs we'd like to show you of the current state of the tennis court. And I'm going to have to put something on so I can actually see what I'm looking at here. There you can sort of see the one corner where the big cracks are at, just off the playing surface. And then as well as the concrete pillars that hold the fence in place, how those have raised out of the ground because of the freeze-thaw of the frost over a number of years. Again, there's a little bit closer picture of what some of those cracks might look like. Jeff, I did send this to you in a series of files. Hopefully you were able to get those this evening.
Yes, I got them, Doug. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Here again, you can see how the concrete's pushing up out of the ground where the fence posts are. There's the actual post itself that holds the net. How the frost over time is sort of pushing that out of the ground as well, and now the crackage that's going around it, cracks on the playing surface itself, as you can see there and there. And again, there are more examples of some of the issues that we're having out at that tennis court. Simply put, that tennis court has probably outlived its expectancy. And we're at that point where we need to take a really hard look at replacing it. And in the Pepple budget that we had for next summer, the summer of 2017, and we did have a budget to have the tennis court replaced. And so as we started looking at this a little bit, we started saying, well, what's our usage out there at the tennis court? And you can see on this slide, Gary Coonan at the high school provided this for us. You can see what the men and women's tennis teams have been over the past half a dozen years, including this current year.
What are the numbers?
Pardon?
Men's 35. What's the 35?
What that's saying is like the first year, there are 28 guys on the men's team and 33 on the ladies' team.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. And you can see that we have to stagger our practice times because we have 6 courts out at Robinson Dresser, and they use all 6 courts for each team, as I understand it. Dan might be able to fill in a little bit more on that. They stagger the practice times. We do use the university's courts for meets. That we've done that now, I believe, for 3 years. And an average meet runs 3 hours in length. We'll typically have 2 meets during the week, and sometimes we'll have doubleheaders on the weekends. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much time we use on the court. This is typically all happens in the month of April and May. So we've got these are really ballpark estimates that we have not hired a design team to do any work on this. There are a couple of vendors across the state that pretty much work on tennis courts, And so what they're telling us to replace the tennis court out there, because their recommendation is that it can't be resurfaced anymore. We're looking at between $525,000 and $550,000 to replace it, and that's basically just a 4-inch asphalt court. Roughly another $27,000 or $28,000 to remove the existing courts because they would have to come out. We're estimating $50,000 for design. That is a true estimate because we haven't talked to any design teams yet about the costs associated for that. And so you can see we're north of $600,000 to be replacing our existing tennis courts. And that estimate does not include any lighting or electrical power that we would want to put to the courts. Our current tennis courts do not have any lights, and there is basically no electrical power out there. Nor does it include the stormwater pollution prevention plan that the district will be required to create when we replace those tennis courts due to city building code, and the costs associated with any stormwater detention ponds or anything else that may come out of that. We just don't flat know that yet because we haven't quite honestly asked.
We budgeted about $750,000 to replace these 6 courts out there, knowing that it would be an extensive project with what needs to be done.
Out of pencil.
Yes.
That would be a correct statement.
Okay.
So as we started looking at this, we started talking with our colleagues with the city and the university, and Mark Ruppelgren from the city and Michael Hager from the university are with us tonight. And we started talking about what needs were with the other entities, and I don't want to put words in Michael's mouth, but the university had been commenting to us in some other meetings that we've been attending to that their tennis courts were getting on towards the end of their useful life as well. And the city is always looking for opportunities to expand programs and improve tennis courts. The only tennis courts we really truly have in the community are the courts at Robinson Dresser, the courts at the university. There are 4 courts at Pete, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right.
And there's maybe a couple out at Orchard Hill Park, and that's it. So the belief is that there's a need to continue to provide tennis courts for the community. And as you can see, we've entered into discussions with the university and the city about those tennis court needs, and we're in the middle of developing a joint partnership to potentially construct and maintain a joint tennis court facility. We've got some very preliminary cost estimates for that, and you can see the breakdown what that would be there. The total is about $1.5 million, and you would look at that and you would go, well, why is that different from $750,000? Well, there's a few things that are different. One is this is 8 tennis courts, not 6. And probably the most important thing is the paving. This is a tensioned concrete slab, not 4 inches of asphalt laid on top of gravel. Now, it would be pre-engineered gravel, but it's still gravel. And so we're talking about 2 different dynamics here, and the intent of this type of a concrete surface would be much more pervious to cracking that takes place through normal freeze thaw that we have here in Iowa. And then this system or this layout would also be designed to eventually expand to 12 courts at some point in the future. I know that with the tennis teams and talking with the tennis coaches and Gary Coonan, that they would really love to see 12 courts. So then both teams could be practicing simultaneously. They could hold joint meets simultaneously, those sorts of things. We just can't do that now. And in some conversations that we've had in the joint partnership meetings with the university, and again, I don't want to take words out of Michael's mouth, but they were warming up to the idea quite quickly, the idea of having 12 courts as well. But in our initial cost estimate, we were looking at 8, with the idea that we could expand to 12. So how would we fund this? Well, one of the things that we're looking at pretty hard is some grant applications, and the city and the school district would jointly make an application to Blackhawk County Gaming Commission, and with any luck, they would be able to provide some funding to support the tennis court project.
And typically with joint projects, those are looked at with much more favorability when you make those applications. So we feel positive about that, having some sort of funding to go along with it.
There are some other small grants that we would be applying for. The university, Hillary at the university has been a key player in all of this, helping us put these grant applications together, that sort of thing. There's been some talk about some potential in-kind contributions where, you know, somebody will maybe supply the fence or put it up or something. We're not that far down the road yet. But then after you subtract all the grant applications and the in-kind contributions, then the remaining costs would be shared between the three entities. And at this point, we're basically saying that the city, Mark and I will be working with Hillary and Michael at the university to put together the grant application to Blackhawk County Gaming. Hopefully we'll be successful for that, and that'll help us provide that jump start that we will need to kind of pull all this funding together so that we can put this tennis court project on the scope. As you can tell by the photographs, we really need to do something. If we divide this by 3, I honestly believe that the cost to the school district would be less than the $750,000 that Dr. Pattee talked about earlier, and it would also continue the great partnership that we've had with the university and the city on many other projects that we've done, whether we're using space at the Dome or whether the university is using Robinson Dresser Sports Complex or what we're using with the city. We've had a host of partnerships in the past that have worked very, very well together, and this would be a continuation of that long-standing practice.
Would you put these at the Robinson Dresser site then? That's where you're...
No, we wouldn't. We're looking at, and I'll let Michael, if you want to answer that one for us.
We're looking at the location close to where Price Lab School used to be. That provides a lot of mature trees and provides some nice wind sheltering that's pretty important. You don't have to, right now when you're out in the open, it takes a long time for those trees to mature out of Robinson Dresser, and we have some natural break right around this site then.
Okay.
What we hear from our tennis coaches and our activities director is that the Robinson Dresser site right now is very challenging because of the wind.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be much better to have some place that's a little bit more protected, that allows for a little bit more playability.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen to our other courts then, the one at Pete and the one at Orchard?
So the courts at Pete would remain. The city, those sit on district property, but the city maintains those. Okay. And then the courts at Orchard, I would have to let Mark answer that question of what the city's long-term plans for those would be.
The city, we have in our CIP about every 3 to 5 years, about $25,000 to do on-court repairs to Pete and Orchard. We use every bit of that for Pete. Orchard ends up being mostly paint jobs and getting rid of some of the burbass. Our needs, of course, aren't as great as the school systems. We're in it for recreation. We're not in it for competition. So obviously, from that perspective, it's a little bit different needs. But we have no intention of getting rid of those because they're heavily used.
And the good thing is tennis courts are the same size, regardless of if you're in junior high, high school, or college, or playing recreationally. They're all going to be the same dimensions, the same size, and that's important that they can be used for this joint purpose across all 3 of the entities.
I'd like to a question based on what you just said, Andy, as far as money goes. So if a court is supposed to be used for UNI, they need it to be the NCAA standard. If the courts are to be used for the high school tennis team, I'm assuming that it's a different organization and a different standard, and then the city needs green with white lines. Is it more expensive to build an NCAA standard court than it is for a non-NCAA standard court?
No, not at all. It's not a different standard. They're the same size. It's the same basic material. It depends on what you want to build it out of. Again, the quote that we had was asphalt, which will last for a few years. Typically, those lifespans are 5 to 7 years. But with the pre-stressed concrete, the maintenance on them are going to be much less over time. Plus, they're going to last quite a bit longer. So you look at long-term viability, but no.
I mean,
no
like, you know,
difference.
like for a basketball court, NCAA gets ridiculous. So is it like that with tennis?
Nope, it's not.
Okay.
What about the university's other courts that you have that you can see off of Hudson Road? Will you keep those then?
No, those are getting towards the end of their life cycle as
Okay.
well, and as we're working on a master plan for that part of the campus, and those are designed to go away most likely anyway, and so these will replace those.
Okay, okay.
That's why this is such a unique opportunity for a joint project, to be able to work together to cut costs and to build something that's going to be valuable for the future.
And we're thinking 30-30 or 33-33-33 about?
We haven't gotten there yet to that level or that depth yet, but that's still to be discussed and to bring back to the board.
I thought 40, 40, and 10.
I know it's not 40, 40, and 10.
Michael would say, hey, it's our land.
What happens to our courts then out of,
We would take them out.
we would just take them out
Yeah.
in green space?
Yeah,
Is that what
we'd
you're saying?
turn it into green space at first, which wouldn't be terribly difficult. We know that that $27,000 number you saw wouldn't quite be that expensive because there's some rock in there, but it would be close to that, what it would take to remove the fencing and the current asphalt.
And I'm sure we haven't gotten this far, but you think about putting that amount of courts over by Price Lab, and you think about people at the track, and you think about the space and the gyms, you're talking parking issues.
We are.
Yeah, there's some underutilized parking just south of where we're looking at there that's not used hardly at all right now.
Okay.
And then if we added we've kind of projected out, if we add the additional 4 courts, we go from 8 to 12, there's probably some more parking that we would add in there as well. So we looked at the site not just for the current needs, but the potential down the road. You know, if we want more lighting, if we needed restaurant facilities, those sorts of things are all factored in should we need to get to that point down
Great.
there.
I figured you all did.
So at this point...
Hey, Andy, I'm sorry, I'm at a disadvantage being on the phone here, being on Black Box. So the tennis season is, when these, for example, for this current year, we've got 41 men and 68 women participating. That is, the tennis season is and this is an ignorance question, but I assume it's just a spring sport. So it's after spring break through beginning of May?
Correct.
It starts after spring break and runs through probably the end of May.
Yeah.
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so that's our bottleneck is that particular time of the year is when obviously we're having trouble getting enough courts for men and women to be able to practice at the same time, and obviously for tournaments it doesn't work as well. I guess, I mean, I'm certainly all for continued cooperation with you and I, and obviously the city. It makes great sense to pool public dollars and do that. But you know, if as we're thinking about how we would divide things up, I think we have to look and see that really the usage of the schools is a pretty narrow window. You know, in the year when we have our constraints, would that coincide when the UNI men's and women's tennis teams are needing? And I'm not, or is it just all recreational use at the university?
No, it's used for athletics. Would use some of it. They also use the Waterloo Club to some extent as well for inside practicing.
The women's season at UNI, is that in the fall?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know when the seasons are.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear him, Jeff?
Not very well.
Okay. Would you do me a favor? Can you walk and answer Jeff's question just so we can hear?
I'm not sure exactly when the seasons are, but we've had the athletic department in the conversations when we've been meeting, and it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah, a lot of it just comes down to scheduling, and I think that they are in different seasons between UNI and the Cedar Falls School District, the Iowa High School Athletic Association, from what I recall with those conversations, because that's not been a concern as it's come up.
No.
It's different windows.
And I would say too, Jeff, that you know, we don't just use our basketball courts during basketball season, and so a lot of our teams are practicing year round as much as they can, whether they're doing it indoor somewhere or they're using the courts in the fall. They may not be organized into matches and things like that, but our kids are playing almost year round.
Well, I've taken my son out to the Robinson Dresser tennis courts several times the last couple of years, and there's always people that are out there playing. So they're utilized. Most of them are going to be high school students that are out there practicing or playing just to hone their skill. But certainly they're used quite a bit of the time, besides the winter months.
I'm guessing Mark doesn't have this at the tip of his fingers, but the rec center, there's tennis programs that are offered through the rec. We probably don't have an idea of a number.
Can you, Mark, I'm going to ask you guys if you're going to talk so Jeff can hear.
Off the top of my head, according to Broad Goose, we get about 130 people signing up for tennis lessons over the course of the season.
Does that also incorporate that other program?
The youth tennis program.
Thank you. The youth tennis program. I can't think of who runs it.
Claire Strock.
Thank you.
Used to do it for UNI, and then she's now partnered with the city. And
okay, so that's all combined now, right? Okay.
And there's a ton of kids.
There are a ton of kids, and I know that it might be a space like this during the summer may be better than trying to get to those courts at Orchard. And
I would guess you'll just add these to them, because I know, if your kids have done them, you have your choice of where you go, and they're all full. I mean, they use all those sites. So.
Well, and I know, at least for the city, that they play pickleball at Orchard in the summer outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I know they're using some of the courts for pickleball.
Pickleball was mentioned because it's getting popular, but I think for these particular courts, I think the NCAA or maybe the high schools would probably want to limit that type of striking on there. So these would probably be more for competition to begin with, and we could look at some of the other courts to put pickleball strikes on. That sport's going like that. It's getting crazy.
What's nice about tennis is it's truly a sport that is played through all age spans. So we know it's an opportunity where we have courts, people are going to use them, and that's exciting. So it's not just for our students or the university students, but it's a quality of life component.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Andy. I think it's one of those great sports you can play all your life. I think for me, one of the fundamental issues just facing is just the funds that we would need to spend. If it ends up being a third, that's, if it's $1.5 million, that's $500,000, and that's coming out of the same bucket that we have for other facility usages. And for example, we know that unfortunately, there's a good chance that we're going to, even though we have the bond passed, that we're going to be needing to get some additional trailers, probably, maybe at Lincoln or other schools. And as we know from the discussions, each one of those can easily be $250,000 by the time we buy it and we install it. So if we're looking at $500,000, that's 2 educational trailers. I still don't think trailers are a good investment, but I think that's, as we're moving forward and making decisions on this, I think that's one of the greatest struggles with the limited amount of funds that we have available. Is this a good dedication of our funds, considering the facilities challenges that we will continue to have, and will likely have within just a few years at the high school level?
Well, that's not taking off the grants that figure of 1.5 or whatever it is, correct?
Correct.
Is that there wasn't a thing. We know Blackhawk Gaming has provided significant funds for the university when you think turf.
And our hope is to apply for the maximum amount, knowing that this is a joint project, which is, again, looked at much more favorably if you're doing something together than you're doing something individually. So we think we have some good likelihood to receive those grants, which will cut down the cost overall, which is something that we are anticipating and looking forward to. But we also know that the $500,000 that you spoke of certainly is less than what we have budgeted if we do this project ourselves, which is going to give us more courts, which is going to give us better courts, which is going to give us a stronger partnership for the future, which we're excited about.
What's the timeline for this then?
Well, real roughly would be we're going to make application to the Gaming Commission here yet this spring, and we'll patiently await for their decision. once we sort of know that, then we kind of have the cornerstone maybe of the funding piece of it, and then we'd like to move fairly quickly after that with the intent that we'd like to start construction possibly yet this fall. If not fall, it's fall next spring. No, next spring, I'm sorry, it's next spring, so that it would be ready in time for the university students could use that in the fall of 17.
One of the questions that I've been asked before is, why, do something like this? Maybe just rent tennis courts from another entity. One of the challenges that we have is if you rent those facilities, that will come out of your general fund instead of our physical plant equipment levy, which takes away some of those classroom opportunities for kids. So we have to be cautious about that too. Plus, if you look at trying to be holistic, I guess, with a well-rounded curriculum for kids, you want those lifetime fitness activities that we can give our kids. That's why we've invested in bikes for our PE program. That's why we've invested in other programs and other facilities to make sure that kids have those activities.
Well, and our partnerships with the city have been very valuable. It's afforded us great opportunities programs. So that has been a wonderful partnership for us. And, when we've needed funds to take care of repairs, the city has been very generous, a very generous partner when it comes to that. So,
and I think that this is not necessarily just about tennis courts, but as we've talked with other school districts, and I've been in 3 other districts working as one, the relationship between our city and our post-secondary schools and our school district is remarkable. And I don't know that people who haven't been here for a long time realize how, I say unusual, but unusual and remarkable this community is, in that these 3, and Hawkeye, the entities work together this is a perfect example. Yes. I am just so impressed with that over and over again, especially when you get out and talk with other communities, other colleges, other school districts, they all struggle independently or they fight each other independently. Kudos, because it's remarkable.
Yep.
I am sitting here looking at this happens to be women's tennis for UNI, and their first schedule they start in September. So they play around.
And from my perspective, from a facilities end of it, it's just a case of, if we're going to offer a program for our kids, we've got to have safe, adequate facilities for them to participate on, and the photographs speak for themselves.
And if we can save funds, let's do it with a partnership. Let's do it. It makes sense. And Jeff's comment, sorry Jeff, I don't mean to speak for you. I know how difficult it is on a phone. We want to be cognizant of our taxpayer dollars and what we spend money on, but we also want to make sure that we're efficient and effective with those dollars, but then save general fund dollars long term as well. And that's that challenge. When we look at our silos and our buckets of dollars, how do we do that effectively?
Is it possible, I know we have been so focused on the major bond issues and things like that for our facilities. Is it possible to get a refresher on, obviously you have a schedule of Pebble stuff that, I am not aware of anymore, so.
We are in the middle of rebuilding a new 10-year plan. It will probably be late summer before we have that completed. But Mr. Gersma and myself started this project probably about 3 months ago. And we've been gathering data, and we're putting the data together. And now this phase we're in right now is to try and put numbers to the requests or the needs. Mm-hmm. And so once we have some general ballpark ideas of what it's going to cost to do the various different projects that we've sort of identified, at some point you will see that. It's going to probably be late summer before we're able to get that to you.
So the hope is to have this come before the board, brought to the facility committee as well, with that 10-year project list, as well as some of the criteria on why we're weighting or ranking or putting certain projects ahead of other projects. And there are certain ways to do that, and we'll bring that to the board for dialogue, discussion, and certainly that review.
It would just be good. The board has changed enough, and we've all been focused on other things, so it would be a good time for us to all become more familiar with that again. So
and starting in July, we're in year 9 of our current 10-year PEPL levy, and so there's another reason why we need to bring that up to speed.
And we all know, and sometimes people forget in our community, that we have so many other needs besides just buildings. When you look at your preventative maintenance with your windows and your roof projects and your tennis courts and your all those other components that you have to run a school district for kids and their learning, there's a lot of those expenditures that happen year in and year out. So we'll bring that plan certainly back to the board. It'll be within the next probably 3 to 4 months, and certainly have that review with those priorities and timelines for when we think those should be done. Obviously, there will be fluidity to that as well, because sometimes items come up and will be dropped, but we'll talk about that as we go through that process.
When do we vote for PEPL again?
That's a question we'll have to bring to
That's
the
a
board.
question we're going to have to be talking to you about this fall.
Yeah, if we look at when it has to be done, our PEPL runs out in 2018. So we'll need to bring that back to our community. It's a 50% vote, and that would probably need to be done either in the 4 dates that you can do it, this December or early next spring. Yep.
Okay, are we finished with this discussion on the joint facilities?
And so, real quick, just to summarize, we're going to move forward with an application to grant the Blackhawk County Gaming with the assistance of these 2 prestigious gentlemen at the end of the table. And
I'm representing Hillary. Hillary's doing the work.
Oh, this is true. Hillary is doing most of the work. And then we'll keep you informed as to the progress of that, and then at some point, assuming we're successful with it, when we're talking to the board about more about specifics at a later time.
And what is Hillary's last name?
Overly.
That's what I thought.
I'm going to echo Susan's comments. It's remarkable, the dialogue that occurs, the discussion that occurs, it's kind of that joint effort that we're here to make sure we're efficient, but serving our community in a positive way. And the dialogue that occurs around multiple tables is impressive. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on our agenda is the proposed list of 2016 graduates.
And that's me. This is always an exciting time where we have the opportunity to really reflect and see the compilation of work by our students, by our staff, which again, we have remarkable students, remarkable staff, and approve our tentative list of graduates for the board. That's part of Iowa Code to approve the graduate list based on the recommendation by administration that they have met their requirements to walk across the stage and have their last days, we heard tonight, in 18 days, which is remarkable. So I would recommend that we approve the proposed list of 2016 graduates.
So moved.
Second.
Whoa.
I
Oh,
move.
sorry.
Thank you. There's always a caveat to this,
Sure
and I want to make sure the
is.
caveat's in there.
All right.
Tentative.
I move that the Cedar Falls Community School Board of Education approve awarding the diplomas for the graduating class of 2016, contingent upon satisfactory completion of graduation requirements as attested to by the high school principal.
Second.
Thank you.
I have one question. Will they be awarded separate, the 2 different types of diplomas separately, or will they all be put alphabetically?
All together.
Okay, just curious. Yep, I hadn't seen that broken out before. Okay.
And I think everybody knows that when they walk across the stage, they get their sleeve, and then they meet on top of the atrium area to go and actually retrieve their diploma after the ceremony.
Thanks.
Can I ask why we do that? Just a question.
I would say multiple reasons, but number one, just to ensure that you don't mess up names. If somebody misses a diploma or misses, the ceremony, and you give them the wrong diploma as they walk across the stage,
Then you're off by one.
Then you're off by one. So it's especially with the number of students and how quickly they go across the stage. And then number two, I think it's also that expectation that understand you are still underneath the school expectations, and this is a dignified ceremony. And the way I always said it as a high school principal, we're throwing a party for you. This is the school's party, and we expect it to go a certain way with dignity in class. So we have one thing that we are going to give to you after the party is completed.
Any other discussion on the approval of these people? All right, those in
Oh,
favor?
go
Yeah,
ahead.
he's-
I was just going to ask you.
Do you have an objection?
No, not me.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, they are graduating. All right, now the discussion on the board meeting location.
Yep, and this is really the recommendation based on what we talked before at the previous board meeting, that the recommendation is that we move, starting in July, we have one meeting in July and certainly the first meeting in August, to the city chamber, council chamber location. I think we can meet then at that August city council chamber following that meeting and have that part of the agenda. How does this work? Do we want to go the alternate and have a meeting back here at the second August meeting, or continue with the city council? But the recommendation is to move forward to go with the July meeting at the city council and the first meeting in August at the city council, and then have that there so it can be broadcast, taped, and we can see how that goes.
I've thought about this long and hard for quite some time, and I guess what I would like to see us do after you talked last time, Andy, I would like to see us move both meetings for the next 6 months to the council chambers, because I think that's a true reflection on what it would be like. I also think it might be confusing if we are bouncing back and forth. And if we're truly moving so that we are showing the transparency that we really do have at our board meetings, when we come back to the boardroom and have a board meeting, I still feel that there might be that opportunity for people to think we are making decisions away from the board table, and I want to take that away. But I would like, and this is just me personally, I would love to be able to come back in 6 months and say, how much extra time did it take cabinet to get down there? Does the community really watch us? Has it made a difference when we've made those decisions, when we read the paper and somebody quotes something in the paper? Has that changed the way things look when it comes to the board? That's just I've thought about it a lot, and I know you guys have all wrestled with it, but I guess that's...
And will it affect who is willing to present?
Yes.
Staff. I guess if you have trouble that you can't get staff.
And we can survey individuals on that. And again, I think, as we've talked to cabinet, we understand moving down there is something that is going to be an opportunity for our community, hopefully, to be more engaged, and an opportunity for people to be able to get to know everybody that sits around this table, the deep conversations that are had, and certainly the great things that are occurring in our school district on a daily basis. So I know there's not hesitations about moving down there, but it'd be good to collect data and then be able to reflect on that data as a board so we can have a conversation. Does it have the impact that we want it to have? Have we seen the benefit that we hope we will see, and has there been any drawbacks from that? So, if that's what the decision that the board moves forward with the 6-month process, I don't think there's any hesitation by anybody sitting around this table going down there for 2 meetings or the first 6 months of meetings. It's not going to change the impact. It's just going to change the scope of the data that we can collect and potentially present and have a deeper dialogue.
And you have talked about this in cabinet in your role.
I
know one of my roles is to support the administration and the staff here.
We know it'll be easier here, but we also understand the demands and the expectations for our community, that this is something that we believe is important and certainly will be an opportunity to showcase what happens in our district.
Jeff?
Yeah, well, I am fully supportive of moving both of the meetings down there. I think it's a great, I think it's a great step forward, but I'm willing to say it's a great experiment to see if it achieves the goals that we believe that it achieves as far as transparency and better engagement with the community. And I thank the staff and the administration for the willingness and flexibility to give this a try. I think I know it's extra work for you folks, and I certainly appreciate your willingness to give this a try, and let's start it and evaluate in 6 months.
The only caveat I would have is if all of a sudden, scheduling-wise, we cannot get there in July, it would be not for lack of effort, it would just be because of schedules. Remember, we move our meeting in July to the third week, so sometimes that is going, so that's going to be the other caveat. We just have to work out schedules, and we might have to have some flexibility. So, and we can talk about that as we continue to dialogue with the chamber locations, but we want to make sure that if all of a sudden we cannot, and it's not because of lack of trying, but it could just be because of how we schedule our July meetings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I want to make sure that if it's, as we broadcast this and tweet this out and talk in the newspaper about this, the hope would be July. But if the worst case scenario would be August. But scheduling is always that cattywampus when you're looking at multiple groups trying to use one space.
Susie?
I want to make sure that, and this has probably already been talked about, how, because with the move, there may be a concept that a school board meeting will run very similar to city council. And so I'm wondering if that, how we communicate that, if there should be a policy or procedures that need changed, how that gets articulated to the community. We will be on television, somebody will speak, we'll have public comment. People may be thinking, well, they're going to respond, right? And our policy is we don't respond. And I want to make sure that the community knows when they're watching that the board is not going to respond. And so those things need to be communicated, they need to be, those procedures need to be available so that we can get that across, that there are.
Agreed. There's some protocols we have to put into place that are going to be different than what we have here. We have our little flyer that we have there that outlines some of those procedures that a lot of people that show up regularly know. But we're going to have to make sure that that's much more clearly articulated. It might even have to be listed on our agenda, or it might have to be a screen that pops up right before we do public comment that outlines some of the rules and expectations that we have. And so those are things that we'll have to work on, and we'll work on those to make sure that they're set up appropriately as we move into that.
Anything?
I agree with what everyone said so far.
Are you done?
I'm with going with the 6 months. All right, I think we've heard from everybody. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we haven't actually articulated what the motion is yet. Do I hear a motion that we move to the new location for the next 6 months?
Hopefully starting in
Hopefully starting as soon as we can in the month of July, but it may be August, depending on scheduling.
So is that what you've moved?
That's fine. That's what I moved.
Okay.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Now it is time for the superintendent report.
One thing that I wanted to mention, and Dr. Shaw reminded me of this, I think it just came out today. Actually, in the U.S. News and World Report, we are ranked as the number 6 high school in the state of Iowa. And again, that's kind of a compilation of a lot of systemic work. Obviously, the work by our staff, not only at the high school, but throughout our system, our students, our parent supports. But that's always exciting, and I think we had a very high favorable ranking with the college and career readiness and some other components. So again, that's Dan could speak much more deeply on that than I could, but it was a neat honor.
Yep. I think first time we've been in the top 10. So.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, really neat. So, and again, I believe that just came out today, I believe. It might have been yesterday, but certainly within the last 24 hours.
Who publishes that, Andy?
The U.S. News and World Report. They always do kind of a compilation of school districts, colleges, those different aspects.
Great. Fantastic. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Very neat, very neat. May 9th, informational report will be the Professional Learning Communities, PLC. We just want to make sure we always keep that as an update in front of our board members and our community. Commencement, May 22nd. I know that Dr. Kenyon and Mr. Hassman will be the two board representatives that will be there. And again, just a reminder of the retirement reception, Wednesday, May 25th at 4 p.m. at Pheasant Ridge. We'd certainly invite all board members to be there. It's always a nice activity and certainly an honor to represent and recognize our retirees. That is all I had.
Okay, are there any more questions, comments, concerns from board members?
I have two questions. One, so third grade retention is being delayed a year, yes? Because there was no funding for summer intervention.
We don't know because it was on a session delay in the House and then it was delayed 1 year in the Senate. So they're going to have to come together in a conference bill, and I haven't seen what that outcome is. So there's two different versions. But we know probably at a minimum it's going to be delayed a year, so it'll be implemented in 18 at the earliest.
Okay. And then I saw that they
Pam?
have...
Sorry.
No.
No, and the other piece is too that currently there's a 1-year waiver that you could apply for a waiver for 1 year, but we don't know if that's going to carry forward. So if they delay it 1 year, does that really mean we have 2 years, or what does it mean? So there's still a lot of questions to be answered.
We just know we have no funding right now for any of those components.
Speaking of no funding and no consensus, so what will we be doing for testing next year? Because they have delayed testing, but I thought the one test was not even going to be in
We don't know
use.
that for sure.
We don't know yet.
We have received something from the Iowa testing that indicates that they will continue to provide those tests for schools, but we haven't been given any direction by the Department of Ed as to is that going to be counted as our state test or what we're going to do.
So Iowa testing would give us the current test.
Yes, that's an option, it appears, but we don't know if it's going to be an option that's going to be sanctioned by the state at this time. So we really are in limbo when it comes to what the state assessment will be and what assessments we can provide next year for students.
So they put in all that effort into the Smarter Balance and all the time and energy and
Overwhelmingly
Yes.
recommended it.
Uh-huh.
We don't know.
So I know politics is playing to this. I mean, is really this all coming down to just a very strong lobby out of a certain county and city that is...
I'd say it's funding number one, probably. But at the same time, I think there's other politics a part of it as well.
So yes.
It's a
and
more
yes.
expensive exam. I mean, the Smarter Balance is going to cost districts more. But
No. And when we were there, was it our board thing? What were we?
We were, for the UEN is what
Yes,
we
for
were
the
talking about
UEN.
that.
I mean, they did address that, and it was not, I think, what was being advertised by, again, certain interested parties.
we also know it's much more well aligned to the Iowa core standards than the Iowa assessments are, or ever will be.
And there were many additional resources for our teachers that
Exactly.
probably was really offsetting those,
Yes.
which it seemed almost all teachers, especially our own teachers who had sat on that task force, were in agreement with. So.
And there were a lot of concessions being made for districts who would have trouble with the number of computers and the number of staff and so on. There were a lot of concessions being made.
And like you said, it's frustrating for us because, with the Iowa report card coming out, that is so much aligned to the state assessment. And yet we know the state assessment right now is not that well aligned with the Iowa core standards, which we are teaching.
Okay.
And so it's a frustration.
So we don't know is the answer. We'll have to get more guidance from the state and we'll find out what those next steps will look like, hopefully in the next month to 2 months. But right now I think they're a little bit in limbo until the legislature decides and makes those recommendations.
Any other comments? That wasn't a comment. That was her just chair. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Hines, seconded by Lance. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
And Sorry. And before we adjourn, the hope would be that we do have an exempt session just to talk negotiations for 5 minutes. It's still, we're going to adjourn, but the hope would be if people can stay around for just a few more minutes, just get an update on negotiation strategy with that exempt session.
Okay. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.